Welcome back to Season 4 of the Music and Us podcast. This is Episode 3. Tonight we're talking about Chris Cornell in our series of Artists That We Miss. Born July 20th, 1964, sadly passing May 18th, 2017. Join us tonight as we talk his life, career, and of course his lyrics and legacy on the Music and Us podcast. Hey, welcome back to the Music and Us. This is Season 4, Episode 3.
3? Is it 3?
Yes, this is Episode 3 of Season 4.
Already.
Of the Music and Us, the podcast.
Awesome.
Yes.
Just gonna make sure that's clarified.
The what cast?
The podcast. The music in us.
The music.
It's cathartic.
The music that's in us.
Hey, wait a minute. That's your line, isn't it?
Yeah. I don't think have you said that yet this season?
Yeah.
Did you?
I think I said it last episode. Or
Okay.
the first one,
All
at
right.
least.
So far, we're pretty regular on things. So, yay. Yay. Right. Yay for regularity.
Did you have your tablespoon of Metamucil this morning?
I did. I did.
I don't know what that means.
It's
will.
to keep you regular. It's fiber to keep you from getting constipated, I think.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
It makes you regular.
Yeah.
Well, anyway. Since our first 2 episodes, we're kind of on a trend of talking about artists that we missed.
Death.
Yeah, I thought I'd bring up Chris Cornell for me, because, you know how John Lennon dying was, like, a big thing for the hippies and whatnot?
Uh-huh. Do you consider yourself a hippie, Scott?
No,
No.
I'm a punk
Well,
through and through. So I call myself a boom Xer. I was born right at the end of the baby boom and right at the beginning of Gen X.
Ah, okay.
And, the hippies were 10 years before me.
Okay.
So, when you were in high school in the late 60s, I was in high school in the late 70s when punk rock was on the rise.
Okay.
And,
Right.
killing disco and that kind of thing.
Got it.
Burning disco albums.
And bras. Burning disco and bras.
Yeah, that's it.
and bras. And
Disco
books.
bras.
Oh, wait. Oh, I'm
Disco
sorry,
bras.
Dre.
But I had 2 older brothers, so I have strong
Disco ball
influences from hippie culture and hippie music,
Well,
But I tend to gravitate more toward heavy rock than
So your parents had hippies and punks in their house.
they did.
Man.
well, still, I'd say that John Lennon dying was a big deal for a lot of people, right?
Sure.
Yeah.
Yep.
Absolutely. Well, Beatles transcend the 60s. I mean, they're still impacting the world.
Yeah. But anyway, Chris Cornell dying for me was like that. It was my best way of describing it. It was for a long time, whole big state of denial and whatnot. And it took me a long time to process it. Took me even longer to be able to listen to certain songs of his amongst his very large repertoire, because he was in 3 different bands of note and also had a successful solo career.
I'm just curious, what songs did you find hard to listen to?
Pretty Noose, especially because he was found in his hotel in Detroit on, I believe, May 17th of 2017, or the early hours of May 18th, after performing in Detroit with Soundgarden. And a exercise resistance band was around his neck in the bathroom. And the autopsy report found that he had taken 3 extra doses of his anxiety medication, Ativan, which, if you were to read up on it, there's some dispute over that drug and everything, but I'm sure if you dig deep enough on any drug, there's plenty of dispute to find. But still, the act of hanging, and then also in several interviews of his own throughout the years when he was openly talking about his depression that he struggled with all his life. He often would mention, like, offhandedly hanging as a form of suicide. Like, he was talking about I forget who had committed suicide in the rock and roll community, but he was being asked about it, and he was like, for some people, you just can't tell if how deep the depression is, and he used the words run-of-the-mill depression. It either looks like it's just run-of-the-mill depression and you think that they'll get over it, or they seem fine, and then the next thing you know, they're hanging at the end of the rope.
Yeah.
So he used that.
I think he was probably talking about Chester Bennington of Lincoln Park.
No. Chester Bennington died after him.
Oh, okay.
In fact, he was a prophet. That was a point that I was going to bring up, actually. Chris Cornell touched the lives of many people. He was very good friends of the lead singer of Linkin Park, Chester Bennington, even though that they are over 10 years apart in age. I think it's just because they saw eye to eye in their own addiction problems and their own anxiety and depression problems. But they did several collaborations together. They went on tours together and did like surprise sing-alongs where like Chris Cornell would come out and sing support to Crawling by Linkin Park, their Emmy-winning song, or Chester coming out on stage and singing Eddie Vedder's part to Hunger Strike, or even sometimes switching it up. And Chester Bennington would sing Chris Cornell's part, and Chris would sing Eddie Vedder's part of Hunger Strike.
That's on Temple of the Dog, right?
Yeah, Temple of the Dog.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Chester Bennington performed, sang Hallelujah at Chris Cornell's funeral.
I know that song. I can't think of the guy's name who wrote it right now.
Leonard Cohen?
Thank you, Leonard Cohen.
Yeah.
That song.
And then, for all intents and purposes,
everyone else.
His wife and everyone said that he seemed fine. But then on June 20th, the following June 20th of the same year, not even a full 2 months later, he was found hung. June 20th is Chris Cornell's birthday.
Wow.
It would have been Chris Cornell's 53rd birthday that day. A note that Chester had written, trying to write a letter to talk about his grievances for Chris Cornell's death, was only one sentence long, and it said, "I can't imagine my life without you." That was it.
It's very sad, tragic.
Yeah. And Chris Cornell is a big reason why Pearl Jam has stuck together for so long, or at least that's how it seems to me from the outside looking in, because Pearl Jam, the band members, consists of the remaining, originally consisted of the remaining members of Mother Love Bone, which was a grunge band before they came around, and Eddie Vedder. And Eddie Vedder moved all the way from San Diego to Seattle after applying to be the new singer for this band that they were going to, rebrand and whatnot. And so he knew absolutely nobody moving into Seattle outside of the bandmates, whom he barely knew as well. But Chris Cornell immediately took him under his wing, took him out on the town, showed him where he was, and introduced him to other people in the community, including Andrew Wood, the singer of Mother Love Bone, and the rest of the band, whom Andrew Wood would soon overdose on heroin, I believe, in 1990.
Yeah.
So then Chris Cornell, who was a former roommate of Andrew Wood and a close friend of him, of course, And then the remaining members of Mother Love Bone, with the newly in Eddie Vedder, formed Temple of the Dog and just wrote an album just for the sake of honoring Andrew Wood. So, fun fact, Hunger Strike, that iconic song from them, is actually the first professional recording of Eddie Vedder, not a Pearl Jam song. It's a Temple of the Dog song. And he wasn't even meant to sing on that song. It was supposed to be another studio musician, but Chris Cornell couldn't convey the sound. He couldn't couldn't figure out what sound he was wanting, and he was getting frustrated with the vocalist because he was wanting it a certain way, but he didn't know how to explain it. And then Eddie Vedder just walked up to the microphone and just started singing, and it's exactly what Chris wanted.
That's cool history. I didn't know that.
Yeah. But Chris Cornell is big guy. Big part of my life. A lot of his music conveys existentialism, struggles with faith, especially Christianity, because he was raised Christian. And then dealing with depression and anxiety. And as I always say, it just feels nice to listen to music that says exactly what you're thinking, because it makes you not feel alone. Because the worst part of, in my opinion, the worst part of depression is how isolated it makes you feel. How isolated it convinces you that you are. And also just the fact that he's was an amazing singer and songwriter. He wrote mostly all of the songs for Soundgarden, wrote the entirety of the songs for Temple of the Dog, and wrote almost the entirety of the lyrics for all of the Audio Slave songs as well. And not to mention his incredible vocal talent. He could range nearly 4 octaves, 3.5. He was known as a mid-range baritone, but he was able to hit easily, in his younger years at least, high tenor notes, which is very well showcased in the song Beyond the Wheel from the Ultra Mega OK album. We can listen to that later as an extra song to listen to, but he goes through his full range from lower baritone to all the way to a mid-high tenor in that song, and it's incredible, his vocal range. And he had a great mastery over what vocal specialists would call a falsetto, which is you are screaming but in a controlled way that makes it sound like your voice is higher, but you're not really needing to sing that high. I've watched a YouTube video on it. Man, I should have written down the title of it, and we could post that in the thing. I don't know. I guess if you search on YouTube, talking about Chris Cornell's 4-octave range, this vocalist professional actually took his soundbite from a song and had it on the audio wavelength thing, and was showing the difference of the ranges of his octaves and how the falsetto works and everything like that. It's just very amazing, because a big thing that's impressive as well is that Chris Cornell never trained professionally for singing. In fact, he never even finished high school. He dropped out of high school, never got a GED or anything, and became this living legend.
Rock star.
Yeah. He
looking California but feeling Minnesota.
Yeah, that iconic line from Outshined is actually very important. It became so popular. In an interview once, Chris Cornell said that he would see crowds screaming back "Feeling Minnesota" when he's singing that part, and he's just thinking they just don't get it at all.
Well, there was a movie by that name.
I was actually going to bring that up. I
Keanu
just
Reeves.
learned about this.
And who was the gal?
Cameron Diaz.
Cameron Diaz. Yeah.
Yeah.
Feeling Minnesota.
Yeah, that line became so popular that in '96, romantic comedy Keanu Reeves and Cameron Diaz, "Feeling Minnesota," was named with that in mind. Ironically enough, too, Courtney Love, Kurt Cobain, another grunge legend's wife, is in that movie because she tried to dabble as a actress for a while. But yeah, she's in it. So
she was in that movie The River with Kevin Bacon. It was a thriller. It was pretty good.
Mm-hmm.
She was incredibly hateable. Her character, I mean.
She's an incredibly hateable person, but that we're not going to get into that because I'll just go on a 45-minute rant that has nothing to do with Chris. Anyway, yeah, he had 2 alcoholic parents. His parents divorced when he was young, so then his newlywed parents were both alcoholics, and he got into drinking by the age of 13, he said, which of course led to drugs, and he struggled with these addictions like all of his life. It actually became part of the reason why Soundgarden broke up in 97, which they officially announced. I just learned the other day. They officially announced that on April 9th of 97, which is another grunge coincidence with my birth week. Because for those that don't know, I was born on April 3rd and of 94. And Kurt Cobain was found dead on April 8th of 94, presumed to have been dead for like 3 days. And then April 9th of 97, Soundgarden breaks up. It's like I was just too late for grunge.
Makes me want to wear a flannel.
Flannel? Yeah. I had a whole phase about that in high school. Kind of cringe. But the Look in California, Feeling Minnesota, that was from one of their first tours as a band in Soundgarden. And Cornell woke up one day while on tour in a hotel room, feeling really depressed and whatnot. Looked in the mirror after getting dressed, and he was in cargo shorts, a t-shirt, wearing a necklace, like Converse. Looked like he was ready to go pick up chicks on the beach, right? High fashion for the 90s, I know. So he was like, I look like a Californian, right? But just feels so dead inside. So it's like I'm looking California, feeling Minnesota. Sorry for all those that live in Minnesota to describe.
People from Minnesota feel about that.
I just assume he means cold and gray and
right.
I guess
it's outside right now.
Said about Hoosiers. I mean, it's
definitely,
especially in the winter. It's just
but
yuck.
But it definitely doesn't ring as well as Minnesota. No. It has to be a 3-syllable to rhyme properly with California. California. What are you thinking, Jay?
Yeah, I know how rhyming works.
Oh, it's like eyes roll or something there. It doesn't matter. But
so as I listened to the lyrics or to the song, I wasn't immediately thinking depression as much as I was thinking he's tired of touring. He's tired of the show business aspect of being a musician.
Yeah, no, there's aspects of that too, of course, especially considering the line that we just talked about, because he was so tired and down while being on tour and whatnot. And there's been several times throughout his career where he's had to take like emergency breaks while even on tour. Like for Audio Slave, when he joined up with Audio Slave, which, by the way, if you don't know, it's a super group with the musicians, the guitarist, bassist, and drummer from Rage Against the Machine after the singer dipped out to try to go do his own things for a while. And so then their producer, who was also a mutual friend of Chris Cornell, suggested to contact him because Chris Cornell at that time was working on his second solo album. So they contacted him after listening to Slaves and Bulldozers, which was the song that the producer played for them as like the teaser of Chris Cornell's ability, which once again is a good song to listen to his vocal range off of Bad Motorfinger, but still far beyond the wheel is the height of it, of course. And he immediately was interested, and he met up with them to do like a little rehearsal, and then, as they said, the chemistry was like immediate. And they wrote 22 songs within 19 days of their first meeting and their first rehearsals, and almost immediately started recording their first album and put it out. And that album has reached triple platinum status.
Not too shabby.
Yeah. But right before that, they were actually going to start touring for this album. Chris Cornell was just broke down. He was ignoring his own addiction and his depression and anxiety while going through like his solo career and working with Audioslave. One day it just couldn't work anymore. His relationship with his current wife dissolved. They had to break up, and he checked himself into rehab for 2 months. So they were actually going to be on Ozfest of that year, 2002, I believe. Do I have that in my notes? Yeah, 2002. Sorry. But they were cut from it because of his hiatus.
Yeah.
But he had to check into rehab, and then afterwards he was like way more amazing. And he quit smoking, quit drinking, quit abusing prescription drugs for quite some time, several years. And the Audioslave members talked about how his voice sounds so much more richer on the next two albums that they did, which their second album that they did debuted as #1 on the U.S. charts. So not too shabby.
Yeah.
Not too shabby. Chris Cornell is just brilliant man. Fantastic singer. And, you know, like I always say, tortured souls make the best artists. You know, like look at Van Gogh, right? Man had several mental issues, and he's like one of the most appraised artists now. But, you know, wasn't appraised at the time, not until posthumously.
Todd Rundgren has a solo album called Another Tortured Artist Syndrome.
I mean, that if that ain't the truth, right?
That's the album that's got Bang the Drum on it.
Okay.
I don't want to work. You know, and the thing was, what's hilarious about it is that was a contractual obligation to crank that album out. So he decided, you want pop? I'll make pop.
Yeah. So
I don't quite get the lyrics of Outshined.
Why?
Yeah. So can you talk about the lyrics? I mean, well, I just don't understand it really.
I
get the disillusionment with show business, but you know, what's he being outshined by? And he talks about show me the power, child. I don't know what that even means. So
yeah, a lot of people have contemplated about that too, but he never said anything about that in the in interviews or whatnot. Sometimes,
what's it mean to you? This is about the music in you, AJ.
Yeah, I was getting to that. But I was going to say that he was talking about with this song being about how his emotions were very bipolar, especially when he was on tour, because he could be at the highest high and then immediately dip to the lowest low at any given point. And so he felt that he would outshine himself. One side of him would always outshine the other. He would always be on a fake high or on a tremendous low, and he could feel it, the depression, on either end. I mean, obviously on the low, but even on the high, he could tell that he wasn't himself. So he's saying, like, show me the power, like, show me a way to fix this, to make myself better, because he's down on his knees begging for it today. The butterflies is anxiety, gives him makes him go crazy, gives him away till he's up on his feet again. Once again, talking about then goes into Outshined. But really, I think it's the lyrics, not the chorus, that are more important, that are like what's more personal. And
the discussion of dogs and green grass. That made me laugh.
Well, like that's definitely a play on the old saying, the grass is always greener on the other side. Until you get to the other side, then the side you just came from was greener, right? That's the whole joke about it. But he's talking about how the grass is always greener wherever the dogs are shitting, right? And talking about letting the dogs out, I think he's just talking about other bullcrap that he's dealing with in his life. That, who let it out? Why can't we just ignore this, sweep it under the rug and whatnot? I'm actually surprised how you don't see the depression in this song, especially with the very first song. Not the first song, the very first line. I'm feeling so down.
Yeah.
I got off being sold out. I kept the movie rolling, but the story's getting old now.
Yeah.
Sure.
Like I said, I just heard disillusionment.
Yeah.
Not necessarily depression.
Well, I would say that disillusionment is a very big part of depression.
In my experience, the longer you stay in disillusionment, the more depressed, the more depression it brings on.
Yeah. Or the longer you stay depressed, the more easily you become disillusioned, or I guess conceited.
So and he says, so now you know who gets mystified. Is mystified code for depressed?
That one, I really have no idea about it. Like,
Okay.
I've thought about it and everything, but I really have no idea.
Okay.
I just think it sounds really good.
Yeah.
For the longest, I like to listen to songs without reading their lyrics a whole lot of the times first. So for the longest time, I actually thought that he was saying, ooh, can't specify. Can't specify this feeling. And then I saw Who Gets Mystified, and I was like, well, that destroys my viewpoint on it. But when I listen to it, I still think of it that way.
You ever
Still
have a
can't
song and
specify.
you think they're saying one thing, and then you finally read the lyrics and it says something else. You're like, I don't care. It's okay.
I like it better my way.
My version. Yeah.
Especially when I sing the songs, I sing it my way.
That's right.
I mean, there is a fair point to that. There's also fair points to the contrary, because it's, not my song, not my music, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But like you were saying just earlier, it's the music in us, what the song means to us. And like, if you never read the lyrics and you hear a song a certain way, and it's, it's like going to an art museum and seeing, an abstract painting, and you come to understand it a certain way.
Right.
But then you ask the artist, what is it supposed to represent? And it's like the exact opposite of what you thought.
Yeah.
Then...
And a good example is songs where I sing what I want is David Bowie's Suffragette City. There's a line where he says, this mellow-thighed chick just put my spine out of place. And I sing... The smell of that chick just put my spine out of place.
Oh, boy.
Which is what I've always thought it said.
That seems
and I still think it's
that
better.
seems even more perverted than the original.
I'm going to go ahead and side with Bowie on that one.
I'm going to side with Bowie on that one. Yes, at least it's consensual at that point.
The smell of...
No, I'm just like...
I'm just imagining like craning at
dirty.
Cranging at the hips like so fast it breaks his spine.
It's just...
I'm just talking aroma. That's all I'm talking about. Pheromones.
That's my spine out of place.
It's sexual attraction. That's how I interpret it. Anyway, I don't even know that.
I'm going to go in the corner and rock back and forth for a while.
Okay, fine. This is not a safe place to share, I can tell.
No.
So do you think she was feeling Minnesota?
She was feeling Minnesota. Probably.
Yeah, gray and dour and soggy down there.
Hey.
Need a little Vagisil.
That song's mostly about heroin. Suffragette City,
Mm.
I think.
Really? I thought it was about suffragettes.
So,
Are you saying it's not about
a woman
suffragettes?
that's a hero, or
I
so
think
you're
it's
saying?
about heroin.
A woman that's a hero.
Hmm?
A woman that's a hero.
Yes.
Okay.
No. No, opiates.
Oh,
Opioids.
Aw, darn. But yeah, so I just wanted to talk about just how amazing and awesome he was, because I mean, like Chester Bennington.
So let me jump in there though. Why, since you were born when grunge was just
dead.
ending. Why do you think that grunge music connected to you so well, and specifically Chris Cornell? You kind of said some of it in
Well,
that.
yeah, like
he sings lyrics that are connecting to you. But
I'm pretty sure that whenever you weren't around, Michelle was probably just thumping Nirvana directly into her belly. And so that's
I don't think my
probably
mom
why.
likes grunge music, even to this day. If anything, it was Tom Petty.
and as far as I was concerned, the only thing I knew was
Hey, that'd be a good
Smells
episode.
Like Teen Spirit. That's about it.
Yeah.
And then AJ comes along and he's into grunge, and I'm like, oh my God, this music is great.
There's a lot of great grunge
Yeah.
music.
Yeah. That would actually, that reminds me, that makes me think, though, that would be a good episode. Have my mom, Scott's wife, Michelle, on as a guest star for an episode for musicians you miss. For Tom Petty. I mean, she could probably fill out a 2-hour time slot talking about it.
Give her a mic and watch her go.
Good luck. She's not talkative. At least not around me.
Gee, I wonder why.
Yeah, I know.
Maybe you don't give her an inch in edgewise.
You're probably right.
But no, of like all the grunge bands out there, the ones that had the one that had the most prolific songs and messages to me was Soundgarden. And then I just, of course, learned of Audioslave by listening to Soundgarden. And Audioslave was even more a nail on the head for me, because he was able to explore more of what he wanted to do in Soundgarden, which
Isn't that a title of one of their songs? Nail in the Head?
It is part of the chorus to Show Me How to Live.
Okay, there
Nail
you go.
in my head,
Yeah.
from my creator. You gave me life, now show me how to live.
Gotcha.
That that's a good song for me. Really a cry out to God for some bloody answers.
If there is a God, show me a sign.
Exactly.
See, I said there. Steve Martin, in case you didn't know. Sorry.
Yeah, or Bruce Almighty. Smite me, oh mighty smiter! Then when he meets him, it's played by Morgan Freeman.
Mhm.
Smite me, oh mighty smiter. Now I have to admit that last part made me laugh. But anyway, do you ever imagine like your own version of like a music video, or like just imagery to a song when you're listening to it?
Sure.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
When I listened to Show Me How to Live for the first time, the imagery that stuck in my head like really well immediately was I was seeing like a clockwork android, like steampunky. Everything's all made out of cogs and everything. And so so it's like if it was like a music video, at the beginning of it, it's like in a workshop, and this clockwork automaton is like sitting in a chair in front of like a workbench or whatever, and then old guy in a white robe and everything comes in, starts grabbing their tools and whatnot, walks up to the head of this automaton, and all the wheels are turning and working perfectly fine in the head that has no like shell on it, so all the cogs are bare. And he starts picking up railroad spikes off of the workbench and a a pit hammer, and each of the railroad spikes have imprinted on them like a mental disease.
Oh, okay.
OCD, depression, ADHD,
Interesting.
like all of my crap. And then when the snare starts coming in, that's the hammer hitting the railroad spikes into the skull of this android and completely destroying all of this beautiful cogwork that this person just made. Another lyric in that song is in these stolen parts, there's a telephone in my heart. Somebody get me a priest to put my mind to bed. This screaming in my head. Is this a cure or is this a disease? Nail in my head from my creator. Good one. But it was stuff like that, and then, like, just if you listen to Audioslave songs, Tom Morello, the guitarist from Rage Against the Machine, is just kind of flexing on every single song, just doing all kinds of wacky stuff with the guitar instead of just having a basic rock guitar beat that drives the song, which was like what Soundgarden was known for. Heavy guitar, barely any high-pitched playing. And Chris Cornell was wanting to get away with that. Get away from that to do more eclectic music and whatnot, which was the other part of Soundgarden breaking up, because Chris Cornell and Kim Thayil, the lead guitarist of Soundgarden, were bashing heads constantly about this because Kim didn't want to be put in the corner because he had a bit of an ego, as lots of interviews say, and Chris was getting sick of his shit. But then they got back together in 2010 when all of them were no longer drinking or smoking anymore, and then they released their final album, King Animal, and it sounds way different than all the other Soundgarden work. To me, I think it sounds like it's more mature, and it's got more deeper thought to it.
Yeah, we covered Rolling off of that.
Rowing
off that album.
Yeah. There's just so many more songs on that album that convey a whole lot of deep thought. Like, I think most of the lyrics are just riddles, really.
Mm-hmm.
But of course, a lot of whole Soundgarden purists didn't like it because it didn't sound grungy enough. Whatever.
Do you get any questions for us as regards to the Outshined at all that you want us to reflect on? Or
well, no, I don't know.
Okay.
I was just wanting to bring up Chris Cornell and talk about him. I mean, but you guys, what do you think? You know, like, what's your take on it? Or like, have you ever even had Chris Cornell on your mind ever?
I mean, not like you, but yeah, I mean, I lived through it.
Mm-hmm.
It's cute. You know,
he is cute.
Indeed.
Yeah.
Wasn't
Good looking.
The thing about the 90s for me was that the fashion too, like the walls started to come down a little bit. Like, trends didn't seem to matter as much anymore. You could, you know, you weren't really held to one genre as much as, you know, socially speaking. Like,
click
feel like
stopped
pop
being a
music,
thing.
you know, it's like, you know, it wasn't unheard of that you could listen to some grunge too or whatever. But so yeah, I was kind of all over the place in the 90s. Can, you know, a little bit of this, a little bit of that.
No, that's fair.
Certainly, you know, the grunge scene shaped fashion in the 90s.
Oh yeah.
and that was my favorite part of the 90s, was the fashion. So thank you, grunge.
Yay.
For bringing us ripped jeans, which I still wear today.
A whole decade where you could just dress lazy.
Yeah.
Tattered old jeans, tattered t-shirt. Just make sure you're wearing flannel over the top of it or you're a sinner.
I think I could probably get away with this if I hopped in a time machine and
oh yeah, you
jumped
definitely
out
could.
in the 90s. I think I'd probably be all right. Yeah. Most people in their pajamas would be.
That's very true. But yeah, no, it's definitely a valid point. There was a lot going on in the 90s, just musically speaking, not to mention everything else. Whole turn of the century existentialism. Yay.
Y2K.
But yeah, there was a whole new wave pop scene that drove into the 2000s and everything. And then the grunge was ushering in like alternative rock that really brought about scene music and emo music and whatnot in the early 2000s. And then not to mention the revolution of nu metal, where metal took a wild turn.
I know that, that genres are incredibly subdivided these days.
Oh, yeah.
But I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but I want to say that grunge was the last big genre infusion.
That's the way I think, but I was corrected by a millennial who said, nu metal was the last big scene or something like that. I don't remember.
Well, that might
where
be
that
true,
scene was
but nu
located,
metal hasn't.
I don't know. Was it California? Where was it? Where was the scene that created nu metal?
Nu metal, I think, was kind of actually in the heartland, because Slipknot was from Iowa. Mushroom Head is from Ohio.
Wow.
But then, of course, System of a Down was from California, so it was kind of.
But was there a scene though? Because the grunge is more or less a Seattle scene.
Yeah, no, I don't really think so.
Okay,
I would submit to that millennial that you were speaking with that nu metal is a new genre. Sure, there are lots of new genres and subgenres, but 90s took over everything. Not just, the grunge scene was all over fashion. It was global. Global fashion was
well, that's the thing though,
by this music genre.
Yeah. That's the thing though, is that nu metal artists, they just dress like grunge artists did. Sometimes even lazier, sometimes a bit sharper and everything. But like Mudvayne, their lead singer would go out on stage wearing a tank top and coveralls that were like 2 sizes too big for him. And usually about halfway through the concert, or maybe even halfway through the second song, the coveralls would be down around his ankles, and he'd just hop out of them because he was wearing cargo shorts underneath. I just got to see them perform at Noblesville a while ago, and he did exactly that. It was like by the third song, he was jumping out of the coveralls because he was sweating profusely under those lights.
That's funny.
Apparently, like the very next concert, as he was doing that, he tripped and fell.
Oh,
while he was singing the song "Not Falling."
Of course. Well, he didn't get hurt, did he?
No, he didn't get hurt, but it was just the irony.
Yeah.
But I mean, I would go as far to say that actually emo was a shifting scene, because that I know for a fact, for me in school, that took over a whole lot of people's styles.
Yeah,
everybody
hoodies.
dressing all in black,
emo.
hoodies, and then the sweat wristbands. Those were huge back in middle school and early high school.
Yeah.
I remember I had so many of them because I loved them. I had one that had, like, spikes. I had one that had Patrick on it saying, "I'm not happy." It was him staring at his hand or something like that.
I have to give emo props, but I still say that it didn't have quite the cultural impact.
Well, I would say
the wide sweeping cultural impact.
Yeah.
Of grunge.
Well, I would say that
Definitely got noticed, though. Definitely.
I would say another thing that happened in the 90s, though, was the upsurge of hip hop and rap and R&B as well, which has taken over the scene as a whole.
Yeah,
I would say.
Yeah,
and
I would
now
agree.
rock and roll and all of its subgenres thereof has been pushed onto the back burner.
I still don't understand. I mean, this has been going on for I don't know how many years now, but when, like, I'm not a Maroon 5 guy. They've had a couple hits that I'd say would make it into a playlist, but they're not a fave band. Anyway, they came up on a playlist last night in the car, or Sunday, I think. And so here's Maroon 5 with a guest vocal by Cardi B.
I hate that woman.
The music genres couldn't be more different, but for, I don't know, forever now, it seems like all these completely different genres have a guest rapper just out of nowhere. Just like,
Because
it's not
money.
even a song written for that. It's like they just pause the music and let them do their thing and then go back to the song sometimes.
Yep.
It's not even fully integrated.
Yeah.
I don't understand.
Because of money. Because rap and hip hop are on the forefront now. Rock and roll artists sometimes try to get these guest artists on their songs
I love
to
a guest. I love
to
a
sell a
guest.
single.
I love a guest artist moment. You know, I love it when, like, I was thinking.
Did you see the Elton John farewell concert on Disney Plus?
No. But I was thinking. This is probably an even gayer thing than that. I was thinking earlier about Chris Cornell, how awesome it would be with his 4-octave range to hear him with someone completely like Barbra Streisand or something, you know, that's also an amazing vocalist in a completely different genre. I love a mashup like that, and when it makes sense for artists to work together, I love a collaboration. But I know, just throwing some rap into a song that wouldn't ever otherwise have it just seems very corporate.
That's exactly what it is. Because that's just the music scene now, and that is the music industry.
It's
Apparently,
dumb.
he has a hit, Elton John, with a guest artist. So he did a duet with a guest artist and had a hit. So even after, because he mentions in his concert, I can't remember her name.
Oh, okay.
Somebody I don't know.
Kiki D?
No, that was a long time ago. Although she came to the concert too. But yeah, he talked about, here after 50 years, I still got a #1 hit on the radio, or something like that.
Yeah.
So, well, that was because he was paired up with somebody who's
Popular.
Oh
Yeah.
gosh, no. No, he's done that several times, but he did something. He had a hit with Britney after she got
Whack.
No, recently when she got free of her
Father.
not emancipation, conservatorship. Yeah, once she finally got released from that, I was kind of looking forward to this. I heard that she was going to record something with Elton John. I'm like, okay, all right. And then I heard it. I'm like, why did you bother? That was literally the audio version of listening to paint dry. But anyway, that's my old ass take on current music.
There you go.
No, yeah, like we often say, we're 4 white guys in a basement with very very specific views on music. That is definitely true. And like that was another problem with lots of subgenres of rock and roll, is that they don't collaborate well. Grunge, they didn't collaborate. They collaborated with each other. Like half the grunge bands of note were like remaining members of other grunge bands.
So it's kind of like,
Okay, it's Cold Heart with Dua Lipa.
Oh, Dua Lipa.
That's the #1 song from 2021.
Huh.
Got it.
But yeah, in 2022 he did Hold Me Closer with Britney. It made #3 in the U.S. and made #1 in Australia. And #1 in
Guess the Aussies
the
love
U.S.
Britney.
dance chart.
Yeah, I didn't think it was that good.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have charted it if it were up to me.
But anyway, That's where my head went. Sorry.
Yeah.
Took you down that. Talking about guest stars and all.
Then like emo bands, they were more about a lot of emo bands were more about their image than anything else. So they didn't collab.
So musical genres are kind of like denominations.
Mm-hmm.
I don't like the way you do it, so I'm going to break off and do it my way and call it something different.
Yep.
Change like one or two things and call it something different.
Yep. Then there's like new metal. A lot of new metal bands, though, they incorporate a whole lot of multiple genres into their stuff. That's the thing about new metal, is that there's a whole lot of bands that like rap and scream in their music, like Linkin Park, Slipknot, etc., etc. So it's like, do they really need a guest artist when they're already kind of doing that?
Mm-hmm.
But then, of course, Linkin Park went and started having their own guest artists, but it would just sound like more Linkin Park, just with a different singer.
Yeah.
Hot funk, cool punk, even if it's old junk.
It's all rock and roll to me.
Yeah. But yeah.
Old ass reference.
Yeah, that's me.
But
Well, the one that brought it home, so.
yeah, I think there was even I think it was even a song by Garbage, if I recall. It's
Love
called
that band.
It's called like Fix Him Now or something like that. But
Thanks, Jay, by the way.
For
Garbage.
oh, you're welcome.
Introducing me to Garbage.
It's ultimately thanks to Jolene because she introduced me to Garbage.
yeah,
What's the song?
I think it was called Fix Him Now
Fix Him
by
Now.
Garbage, but it was originally just supposed to be called Chris Cornell. And she's singing about Chris Cornell in that song because at the time the singer of Garbage was obsessed with Chris Cornell and his amazing vocal range and everything. So they have a song about him. It's just like
Wow.
he touched a lot of people in this subgenre of rock in the Seattle scene, and even breached into new metal with Linkin Park and whatnot, and just a very iconic voice and a very amazing vocal range and an amazing mind and songwriting ability. And he's not in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. What the fuck's up with that?
Yet.
Yeah. Soundgarden.
What year did he die?
2017. Yep, 2017. And the rules for the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, it has to be 20 years after their debut album, right? And Soundgarden was together starting in 1984. They were together longer and before Nirvana and Pearl Jam, but Nirvana and Pearl Jam are both in, and not Soundgarden, or Temple of the Dog, or Audioslave, or Chris Cornell's solo career. He should be like Eric Clapton and have like 6 different entries in there by now. But no, instead we got Foo Fighters getting in on their first possible year of nomination. Because it's by popularity votes. And now we have Eminem and Whitney Houston in the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. Because that makes sense.
They just need to change it from rock and roll to just the Music Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
No, it's the whatever makes us the most money Hall of Fame.
Yeah, that's definitely the truth.
Well,
but it's just
they
like
are in Cleveland, so, give them a break for getting desperate.
No.
Who goes to Cleveland? Unless you just
It's
have
the
to.
birthplace of rock and roll.
Yeah, but who goes there
Really?
unless you just have to?
Considered to be because Alan Freed is the one who
That's where he was?
popularized that term.
Sure.
And the first rock concert that was held in Cleveland, put on by like his radio station. Or whatever.
okay.
The Moondog Ball.
Huh.
Yeah.
I went to a fetish ball in Cleveland once. Still haven't been to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, though.
You should go. We should go. Let's do an on-the-road show going to the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
You really don't have much memory. We've already talked about that.
Well, let's do it.
It's just a
No, let's
matter
not
of
talk about it. Let's
putting it
do
on
it.
the books.
When we're doing it.
it's a matter of coming up with the time, money, and the will.
Okay,
Well,
fine.
I just
like
need
fun,
to know
though.
ahead of time.
Because yeah, to be
Just need to plan
perfectly
ahead.
honest,
Plan it,
the last time we went to the Rock and Roll of Fame, it was like, most of it was except for the new edition that they did, which was called the Garage, and it just had a bunch of stands of instruments with computers that could teach you how to do the instrument, or a whole section of couches with acoustic guitars up on the wall. Dad tried to teach me Satisfaction, how to play Satisfaction on the acoustic. Couldn't do it because my fingers wouldn't allow me.
No.
But like while we were there, it's like there's these dudes that must have been in like a garage band together that were just rocking out, and it was awesome. But it was just three dudes, right? One guy is singing and playing guitar or bass, and then another guy's on drums and guitar or bass. And then at one point, just this old black fella, like in his 60s or 70s, gets up onto the keyboard that's next to him and just starts tickling him like crazy. And I was just like, okay, now this is awesome.
Yeah, that kind of, it just comes out organic like that.
I really like the the Beatles Get Back session and the roof concert and all that special exhibit they had up.
No, but yeah, that
On our
was great
last
too.
visit.
But you could watch that at home
Yeah,
if you wanted to.
But it was very cool in that special studio they had with the rooftop concert going on.
Yeah.
That was neat.
Sure. Very well.
Yeah.
They finally put on a display case for Kurt Cobain's guitars, though, and then got the date of his death completely wrong on the placard.
Ugh.
That's embarrassing.
Oops.
Like, not even like off by a couple days. No, it was the wrong month. And I was like,
that is very sad.
and I was like, oh, okay.
It's
Thanks for fact checking, Rock and Roll Hall of Fame.
right.
Shows how much you care.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
really
Like
sad.
I said, they inducted freaking ABBA and Eminem. It's the whatever makes us the most money. You know, that's all it was about. But yeah, that's Chris Cornell. Amazing, and I miss him because just like the album that came out to dedicate his unique singing, it was called "No One Sings Like You Anymore," which is a lyric from Soundgarden's song "Black Hole Sun." But yeah, nobody sings like Chris
So there's
Cornell.
a tribute album?
Yeah,
Oh, I need to hear that.
it's an album of works of like cover songs that he sang live. So it's a whole lot of
It's him singing.
Yeah, it's a whole lot of live
okay.
music of songs that like weren't released before.
Nice.
But quite frankly, I had heard most of them before on like YouTube videos or whatnot, so I wasn't all that impressed. But
I got it. I just hearted it on Spotify, so it's in my library now.
I heart that.
yeah, but like I remember in the couple of months following his death, before Chester Bennington died as well, there were several bands, including nu metal bands. I remember Stone Sour did a tribute to the singer of Stone Sour is Corey Taylor, who's also the singer of Slipknot. And at one of their concerts, they did Outshined in tribute to Chris Cornell. And I just remember like going down a YouTube rabbit hole of all these bands doing recent live covers of Soundgarden songs in tribute to him. And they all just sounded so wrong to me. Maybe that was part of like the grieving process, of course. But it was it was either the singer was trying to hit the high notes that Chris Cornell could and were failing miserably, or they weren't even trying at all and they're just singing in their normal deeper voice, and it just, none of the Soundgarden songs sound right without Chris Cornell.
That's the issue with any kind of musical tribute, because it's an honor, I guess, to be asked to sing something, at a memorial service or something like. But then you can't win. You're either going to sing it just exactly tone for tone, pitch for pitch like the original, and you're going to get lambasted for, trying to sound just like this legend that died at their memorial service. Or if you vary in any way, then you're being disrespectful. It's just, there's no way to win. Or it's just not going to sound right, and people aren't ready to hear it yet, and...
Yeah, so I guess was just part of the grieving process. I bet you if I went back and tried to listen to some again, I'd be far more appreciative of it.
Maybe at least in a way that's like, okay, I can appreciate what they were doing.
Yeah.
I remember Christina Aguilera singing for, I think, was it Aretha Franklin's funeral? And at the end of the day, all anybody could talk about was the self-tanner that was running down her leg because she was sweating. I mean, it's ridiculous.
Well, that's just media heads for you. But, yeah.
You want to listen to Beyond the Wheel?
Yeah, I think we should listen to Beyond the Wheel. Just give you guys a taste.
We don't have to talk about it.
Of his awesomeness. Okay. I mean, how long have we been going anyway?
Over an hour. So before we start that, do you want to wrap it up?
Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Might as well just wrap it up, yeah.
All right. Well, that has been another episode of
The Music in Us.
This was especially cathartic for me.
Yeah, I can tell. You got a happy face over there, AJ.
Yeah.
He's content.
The only reason why I didn't bring up like more songs or another song that's more personal to me in particular is because I didn't want to start crying and get broken up. So I was like, Outshined would definitely be the easiest for me to talk about because it had several talking points about Chris and not just about how I feel.
Right. Well,
but
I appreciate it. I loved the trip down memory lane.
Yay.
Certainly more in depth than what I knew living through that era. So thank you for schooling me.
Schooled.
Appreciate it. All right, guys. Next time we're going to talk about Prince because we miss him too. Until then, take it easy and keep the music in you.
That's a good one.
Don't let it out.
Don't let it out. It'll escape.
No.
Thank you for listening to The Music in Us. We hope you enjoyed today's show. Also, we would love to hear from you. Please reach out to us when you can, any way that you can. Email us at themusicinuspodcast@gmail.com. Follow us on Twitter at TheMusicInUsPod, Facebook at The Music in Us Podcast, or on our website, themusicinus.com. We'll see you next week with another great gabfest about the universal language of music.